I'm tired.
The Late Morning Program with Namras Podcast.
Hare Krishna, everyone. You are listening to the Late Morning Program with Namras, the number one Hare Krishna podcast in the world. My name is Namras. I'm here with Garuda Prabhu and Basu Ghosh Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu, so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is a very interesting topic. And there have been a lot of comments, about 200 comments on that post that I made with this flyer and everything. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background on how we came across this, why we're talking about this. I believe that dialogue is really important in the Hare Krishna community. There's a lot of different topics that are very polemic, that can be very divided, very controversial. But I think it's really important to hear both sides of any topic, of any perspective. And I think this will be a great example to hear from two devotees who respect each other, who also have talked about this before amongst themselves privately, and also to open up this conversation and open up dialogue with this topic, because it's been a lot of very charged kind of topic. So also, I want to explain why we made it called female Diksha gurus as opposed to Vaishnavi Diksha gurus. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the same thing: Vaishnavis, females, Matajis, whatever you want to call it. But the official ISKCON term is the female Diksha guru. That's why it was no disrespect towards anyone. We of course know that they are Vaishnavis, and I also want to say, please be kind and respectful in the comment section. I know there's going to be a lot of dialogue in the comment section, so please be respectful there. There might be something that's said that you don't agree with, but that's okay. Everyone has their own perspectives. Like these two Prabhus, they have their own perspectives. They're going to say their perspectives, and that doesn't mean just because it's against what you believe in doesn't mean you have to, ad hominem attacks or this person like that, etc. So I just want to start off by a little bit of intro on Basu Ghosh Prabhu and Garuda Prabhu. So maybe Basu Ghosh Prabhu, you can start us off. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, just very briefly, how you joined, where you joined, what year, and now what have you done since then?
Well, I moved into the temple with the encouragement of a senior godbrother in February 1973 in Evanston, Illinois, which is the home of Northwestern University. Garuda Prabhu, being an academic, he went to the University of Chicago. So he probably, I don't know if he visited the Evanston temple.
Oh, yes, I lived there.
Oh, okay. So that was an old segregated African-American, to use even that term is being disputed now, in all the political correctness of the West. But, they called it the Negro YMCA. That's what the building was. And I was there from February 73 till February 74. Tamohara Prabhu was my day-to-day boss in the spiritual sky incense warehouse in the basement of the building. But he didn't last long. He left after a couple months. Sri Govinda Prabhu was the temple president. Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu was the vice president. Jasomati Nandan Prabhu was there. He was the temple Indian, so to speak. And after a year living in the temple, Jasomati Nandan Prabhu went away. He got married in Los Angeles, and he came back for the December marathon, and he asked me, do you want to come to India? So I said, I'm sure, And at that time, Kirti Raj Prabhu, who lives in Alachua, had obtained 50 entry visas from the Indian consulate in New York. There was no Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, San Francisco. It was Indian Embassy in Washington, Indian Consulate in New York. So I got an entry visa. I'm cutting a longer story short. And almost to the year to the day I landed in Bombay. And I joined, to make a really long story short, joined Achyutananda ex-Swami. He lives in Alachua. And with him, I came to Hyderabad, not physically with him, ahead of him. And those first 2 months in India, I was, a very junior devotee with Prabhupada in Juhu, Mayapur, Vrindavan, again Juhu, and then Hyderabad, and then Tirupati. We had Darshana Balaji with Prabhupada. I traveled with Achyutananda September 74 till, I guess it was January 75. And there was a split. I joined ISKCON Hyderabad. And Prabhupada inaugurated that temple on Janmashtami 76. I flew with him from Bombay, long story, from Bombay to Hyderabad. And after Prabhupada's disappearance, I wanted to leave Hyderabad a year later. And I had options, and I was already attached to India. But I knew Jasomati Nandan Prabhu asked me to come to Gujarat, so I went to Ahmedabad, like March 1979. Seems like yesterday. It's almost 43 years. And I stayed in Gujarat. I was in Ahmedabad for a year, Baroda for 2 months, Surat for a year and a half, back to Ahmedabad, well, then back to Ahmedabad, but traveling book distribution in Gujarat only for 6 months. And then we collected money to build a traveling bus. But before it was ready, I went back to Surat for a year and a half. And then just around the time of Indira Gandhi's assassination, which is a, remarkable, unfortunate period, we had met her. We had met her in Delhi in 1980 for 15, 20 minutes. Sorry, there's a bit of a minor disturbance here. The podcast has started. So, yeah. I entered Grihastha Ashram, and I settled in Baroda, where Jasomati Nandan Prabhu had gotten a 6-acre plot of land from the government at a throwaway price today, and it's like worth hundreds of times more. Nobody has 6 acres in the town. What to speak of, then we built the temple. That was opened, it's almost 23 years ago, 22 years ago, Krishna Janmashtami, 1999. And it's a landmark place. In fact, I don't know, in the United States, a lot of people don't follow the politics of Gujarat. It's a state of 50 million people. So it's bigger in population than Iran, for instance, et cetera, et cetera. And recently, the Prime Minister of India is from Gujarat. The Home Minister of India is from Gujarat. They removed the entire cabinet, state government, put a new chief minister, which is like a governor here, and took out all the old ministers and replaced them. And the new home minister visited ISKCON Baroda the other day. And it was a big visit with like 500, all the local member of parliament, the local MLAs, was very successful. They all took prasad at the temple. And ISKCON in Gujarat has 23 centers. ISKCON in India has 400. I'm also a member of the Mayapur Executive Board, and right now we're grappling with an audit that was done of the different departments in Mayapur. Also, after Bhakti Charu Maharaj's unfortunate disappearance from this world, I'm the regional secretary from Ujjain, for Ujjain, taking his place. But I'm just an umbrella. My policy is to really, I'm not a control freak. I know, the history of ISKCON is full of them. And we have them in India. We have them everywhere. I mean, it's just human nature. But my policy is to boost up other people, to bring them up. I haven't had this regional responsibility because Jasomati Nandan Prabhu was always the boss. And he is a remarkable figure, having translated and published all Prabhupada's books in Gujarati. He didn't translate them. He got them translated and he edited them.
Prabhu, what have you been doing more recently?
Yeah, I've been in the United States it'll be 14 months at the end of this month, but I'm going back to India.
Wonderful.
In 2 weeks. I've been living independently. I've been doing my duties by Zoom meetings.
Wonderful.
You know, I'm the vice chairman of ISKCON Indian Governing Bureau.
Okay.
Which is the legal body of ISKCON in India.
I see.
So the ISKCON India governing body met at Ahmedabad, the last physical meeting before the pandemic. And I'm vaccinated. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I have many friends who are anti-vaxxers, but, you know, we can agree to disagree. And, you know, I don't want to fight with them. But they're very opinionated.
Right.
So,
okay, we can give now Garuda Prabhu a chance to intro. Yeah. Go ahead, Garuda Prabhu.
Yeah, sure. I came to the ashram in Baltimore, Maryland, where I was attending Johns Hopkins University. After I had just come back from India, where I went with 5 other friends, and I didn't like where they were going. So I said bye to all of them. I said, I have to go to Vrindavan because I've been reading Bhagavad Gita for years. This is age 18, by the way. And I ended up in Vrindavan, unbeknownst to me, on Janmashtami Eve of all times. So I went there and then I got entangled with a rather powerful yogi. So I guess I got all that sort of Ashtanga yoga out of my system there. I think Krishna knew I needed to do that. So eventually I came back. He made me shave my head and beard and I had a shika. I showed up at the Baltimore temple and this is in 1972. And they said, the lady who answered said, oh, Hari Bol Prabhu. What language is that? What is Hari Bol Prabhu? You know? She said, where are you from? What temple are you from? I said, well, I came back from Vrindavan. She said, oh, New Vrindavan. I said, New Vrindavan? I know of a New Delhi. I don't know of a New Vrindavan. Anyway, I was just getting, introduced to the movement. So eventually I quit school after 3 years and went to Washington, D.C. and moved into the ashram there. And there was Damodar, the original 22nd Avenue Damodar Das. Well, that was very fortunate because he's a very smart devotee, very dedicated, very devoted. And he would come to my ashram room and read something for me. And he said, everything is there but Krishna. This is Plotinus. So he was always kind of eclectic and always seeing how everything was connected to Krishna intellectually. Rupanuga Prabhu was the GBC at the time. And gradually, I was traded. Back then, you were traded. I don't know how to explain it, but you were traded. The new temple president didn't like me because I wouldn't cheat people on book distribution. So he got rid of me and got me to Philadelphia, where Ravindra Swarup was. And he sent someone else in my place. So I was traded up to Philadelphia, or traded down, depends on how you want to look at it. So Ravindra Swarup, of course, I was helping him finish his doctorate. And at that time, also the Bhaktivedanta Institute was being formed by Prabhupada and Swarup Damodar. So I was part of all of that. But I only had 3 years of undergraduate. So I had applied to the University of Chicago doctoral program after I finished up at American University, my 1 year. And it was kind of miraculous, but I'm not going to go into those details. Basically, I was the first devotee to go back to school to become an academic intellectual expert on us. We saw how Prabhupada loved the appreciations for his books from academics. I mean, he just loved those appreciations. So it was now time for one of us to be one of us in the academic world. So as when I finished up at the University of Chicago, Satsarup also was involved in my cultivating this sort of thing because he had written readings of Vedic literature. So in Rupanuga's last letter to Prabhupada, I believe it was his 100th letter, Rupanuga had received 100 letters from Prabhupada. In the last paragraph in the last letter he wrote, he said about what I was doing on my way to Harvard, because I got into the Harvard program. He said, our idea is to establish the pure theism of Lord Chaitanya at Harvard, vanquishing the Christian monopoly on theology. Wow. Okay. Satsarup forced me to send my master's thesis on the Chaitanya Charitamrita to Prabhupada in August of 77. And Prabhupada conveyed extremely encouraging words that every day I remember. So ever since I've been, involved in the academics, but involved in temple life as well. Always lived near a temple and was very involved in the temples. So I started, 50 years ago, and I was in the Boston area for 13 some years, and then have academic positions. I've been teaching for 35 years and using Prabhupada's Gita in practically every course I teach. So it's very interesting to see how the academics relate to our movement. My whole seva is really about establishing the highest principle of Krishna bhakti theology in the intellectual world, because its treasures have yet to be appreciated. So I've been, trying to publish with very fine publishers such as Yale and Princeton, Oxford, and so on. Some devotees criticize, they say, you can't write about Krishna unless you're a pure devotee. And then I said, well, if Prabhupada wanted me to stop writing, he would have told me at the time he saw my master's degree, my master's thesis, that is. So I think that Lord Chaitanya's mercy, his grace, is more powerful than my inebrieties in representing Krishna Bhakti theology all these years. So that's what I've been doing. And I'm on 2 faculties. I'm at a university in Virginia, and I'm at a university in Berkeley. And I teach graduate students, doctoral students in Berkeley, and I teach undergrads here. And I closely associated with the Nutama's temple up in Potomac, Maryland, where we'll go. Yeah. So that's a brief one.
Great. So I'm hearing an echo for some reason.
Is it coming from here?
No, I'm not hearing it anymore. It's okay.
Okay.
So let's get into the topic. So first of all, I want to address how did this topic come about? Like, what was it that made you Prabhu's contact me and say, hey, let's do this. Let's do this conversation.
Well, Basu, may I kick in here? It's sort of funny the way it happened, right, Basu? I mean, Basu was in Dallas, and he was going to lunch a couple times with Yudhishthira Ji of Dallas, long time ago.
He was coming to my place for prasad.
Oh, he's coming to your place for prasad. Okay, right. I didn't know the exact circumstances.
We were sitting on the floor. I was surprised that he could even do it, but he is an athlete, a retired ex-athlete.
Yeah. I sit on the floor all the time, and I'm no athlete.
Well, he suffered injuries.
That's right. He did. The tennis, that's right. Yeah.
He's a tennis
expert.
He's a tennis man.
Yeah, he is. So that's how it happened. That Yudhishthira wrote to me and said, I had some wonderful visits with Basu Ghosh Ji, and do you know him? I said, I've never met Basu Ghosh. And honestly, Basu, isn't it amazing how many God brothers and God sisters I have never met after 50 years?
Well, there's devotees all over the world. Even the U.S. is spread out.
It is spread out. Yeah,
everyone is not in Alachua.
that's right.
Yeah, everyone
Exactly.
is not in Alachua.
Yeah, but they don't know that. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll be hearing from the Alachuans now. Okay, good. So anyway, Yudhishthir suggested that we have a talk about this topic. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. I mean, I haven't really done much on it. And I wrote to Basu Ghosh, and he seemed amenable, maybe a little nervous at first. so because talking to me is not a pleasant thing. I understand that. Many people. Yeah.
My experience was very different.
Yeah.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. No, we had an enjoyable.
I wanted to even come down and meet you, but after driving up and down to New Jersey and 3.5 hours, it's a bit painful.
It's been busy.
I think it's a similar type of drive, the other side.
Not as bad. Not as bad, by the way.
Oh, well, yeah. I'm still open to the idea.
Yeah, okay, we can get together.
That I am heading the other way this week to Delaware.
Okay, good.
Where my youngest son is going to be settling for a year or so.
Well, the person who made our connection, Yudhishthir, today happens to be his birthday. So this can be, he can consider this a birthday present.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Yudhishthir. Yeah. So that's how it came out. And you contacted me, and then we went from there. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's start out with an opening statement from each of you. I'm going to time it 5 minutes just so we have some structure, if that's all right. So I guess Basu Ghosh Prabhu, you can start us off. Just 5 minutes. Give your what your viewpoint is on this whole thing, because I don't think everyone knows what I think people thought, because it was two men here, that it was going to be like, okay, we're all not for this, or we're all for this. It's like, let's get a little bit deeper into what you're thinking.
You see, during the time of Srila Prabhupada, and from many, many statements from Srila Prabhupada, we can understand that he had a very traditional view of the role of women in society. And that included his ISKCON society. And that view is not acceptable to the concept of feminism. And if you look up the word feminism in the dictionary, can I read it with your permission?
Please.
You've got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't keep it. The advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. That's the supposedly Oxford American dictionary supplied on Macintosh computers, which is what I am sitting on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in 21 years ago, it's almost 22 years ago, the GBC of ISKCON, heavily Westerners, with a few exceptions, Western devotees like us too. And I guess Namrasa is a Western devotee.
Oh, he's Western. He's totally
Indian
Western.
Family.
What are you talking about? I'm Indian. Look at me.
No, you're Western.
Well, I'm as Western as the next one, as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So the GBC passed a resolution based on a feminist push, which was the resolution of 2000 calling for equality in service for women, equality for women in service in ISKCON. And that was followed up by a paper from, I think it's 2005, by the so-called Shastra Advisory Committee, because we're not happy with those papers. But they, with convoluted logic, approved of the concept of female Diksha gurus. Now, the reason for that, our apprehension or our feeling is, it's just feminism in another, it's just feminism raising its head. The gender equality movement. So you have Kamala Harris, these are icons of gender equality. We don't have to name all the names, but women want to be equal with men. And that's not limited to the United States. It's going on in India as well, Anyway, is that 5 minutes, or I don't know what the time
No.
is.
You have 2.5 minutes left.
Okay. So over the years, ISKCON India has been opposing this concept. And we're outnumbered as far as in democracy at the top among the GBC of ISKCON. We passed a resolution in 2010, and then in 2019, November, we passed a resolution after the GBC passed their authorization of female Diksha gurus. We passed a resolution expressing our strong opposition. And I can read that during this session if you want, just for clarification, but not right now. The GBC met in Mayapur, their last physical meeting, February 2020. Myself and Dayaram made a presentation. Dayaram, the president of ISKCON Calcutta. I don't know if you know him. He used to be the general manager of Mayapur. He's a graduate of the IIT Bombay, computer science. 1981, the famous, or in our view, infamous Madhu Pandit Das was his classmate. 4 of them joined together, got initiated by Jayapataka Swami. So we made our presentation, and the pro-FDG faction of the GBC made a presentation. And then the GBC voted to hold the implementation of FDGs in abeyance until there was a dialogue between the Bureau representatives and the GBC representatives. So I was on the Bureau representatives team. We had a number of meetings. Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who I know for many years, I'm not particularly close to him, but we're very friendly. And because of these meetings and other issues, we've become friendly over the phone. And I visited him in January at that BI Gainesville place he has there for an hour. I was with him. Jayadvaita Maharaj was there. I spent an hour with him. Time is up.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry to
Okay.
finish your thought.
Right.
Finish your thought there.
The thought was that the dialogue had never reached a mutually acceptable conclusion. It's a divide. It's a schism.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Garuda Prabhu, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'd like to respond a little bit to what Basu Ghosh is saying, and I agree that this equality thing between men and women is not correct. I don't think Prabhupada said there's not equality there. But then again, even among women, there's not equality. And then among men, there's not equality. There's no I don't know where the equality is, except on a spiritual level, honestly. It's about qualification. I mean, I'm not equal. We've talked about our friend Yudhishthir. I'm not equal on the tennis court to Yudhishthir. I'm just not. In fact, I would be embarrassed to go on the tennis court. It's all about qualification, and it's all about the absolute principle of Krishna Bhakti Uttama. As you know, Krishnanushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. And the absolute principle of bhakti is what I am concerned that it should be preserved at all cost. That there's no way to eclipse or limit the possibilities in bhakti. And we've seen in the history of Krishna Bhakti tradition that there have been all kinds of different gurus and gurvis even. And I'm not someone who's fond of institutional adjudications of relationships. Prabhupada said you should not be a father or mother unless you can, liberate your dependents. Well, I don't see the ISKCON GBC interviewing every parent if they're qualified to, liberate their dependents. Guru is a relationship word. It's not an institutional word. If I tell all of you that I'm a father, I'm sure, Basu would congratulate me, and he has children and even grandchildren. Congratulations on that, Basu. And then Nam Rasa, he's got lovely children. I'm sure you would both say, Garuda, that is so great. Thank you. Do you have a boy or a girl? Oh, I don't have any children yet, but I'm a father. See, father is a relationship word. Guru is a relationship word. You're not a guru unless you have students. If I tell you I'm a professor, oh, well, that's great. Where do you teach? Oh, I'm not teaching anywhere. I don't teach at any universities. Well, then how can you call yourself a professor? It doesn't work. So guru is a relationship word. Guru Shishya. What forms that takes at this point, and I'm interested in learning from Basu Ghosh and you, Namrasa. I'm here to learn. But in my understanding of the absolute principles of Krishna Bhakti, there's no predicting what forms Krishna Bhakti will take. I mean, honestly, I never thought we would be listening to a woman's voice every morning and greeting the deities. Now, how did that happen? I mean, maybe that would be uncomfortable in India, whereas in the West, maybe it's not so uncomfortable. I was personal friends with Yamuna, very close for a good 3 years. She moved to this area with Dina Tarni. But again, to my mind, it's about qualification. One who knows Krishna Tattva is the key thing. And I'll just give my remaining minutes or seconds over to our group here.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. I just wanted to address some devotees were wondering why it's 3 men discussing something that has to do with Vaishnavi things like Vaishnavi Diksha gurus. Well, it was purely a practical thing in the sense of or incidental that these Prabhus approached me that they wanted to talk about it. If 2 senior ladies wanted to approach me and wanted to talk about it, then I would be very open to it. But this is just how it happened. So it's nothing like, oh, we want to not have the Vaishnavi voice on this topic. It's just how it ended up. But
may I add a footnote to that?
Please, yeah, please.
Just a quick footnote. And I don't see male and female being an issue, at least in my mind, and maybe it should be. But I just see who's qualified. I mean, who and not just who's qualified, but where are the natural relationships occurring between, guides, spiritual, who is inspiring me? Those are my gurus.
Right.
I had an inspiring talk with Basu Ghosh a couple of weeks ago. He was a Shiksha guru for me. He was telling me all kinds of things that was really just wonderful to hear. So again, I think it's not about men or women. I think it's about Vaishnavas.
Right. So I guess Basu Ghosh Prabhu, maybe you can answer my question now. What is it about like the legislation of guruship that because you're a part of the management in India, what is their view on legislating guruship and even furthermore the issue of Vaishnavis becoming gurus?
See, mother is the first guru. So it's not that women are not gurus. However, if you don't mind me, maybe it's a little not what you're asking.
Go ahead.
Like Bilva Mangal wrote, Chintamani Guror Me. Chintamani was my guru. She was a prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
So how can a prostitute be a guru? So that's the kind of guru maybe Garuda Prabhu was talking about. Maybe he wasn't.
I don't consider you a prostitute, Basu. I don't.
No. What I mean to say, see, Shiksha Guru, Prabhupada, there's this famous purport by Prabhupada, which the feminists in ISKCON are doing their darndest because I don't want to use expletives, to obfuscate, where Prabhupada clearly wrote that Dhruva was, about to get in an airplane to go to Vaikuntha, remembered his mother. Because if it wasn't for his mother, he wouldn't have met Vishnu. So his mother, Prabhupada wrote, she was his Pata Pradarshika. Pata is the path, which is, it's funny. It's a Sanskrit word, but it's in English. Pata, path.
That's right.
Pradarshika, one who shows. And so he wrote in his purport that she was his Pata. See, the verse has nothing to do with the topic of guru. Nothing whatsoever. And here Prabhupada clearly writes, she was his Pata Pradarshika Guru and Shiksha Guru. Then he wrote, there's no difference between the Shiksha Guru and the Diksha Guru. Yeah. And then he wrote that usually the Shiksha Guru becomes the Diksha Guru. But then he wrote, being a woman, and specifically his mother, she could not be Dhruva's Diksha Guru. So, you see, this comes to the role of women in society. Now, we accept there are 12 Mahajans, right? I don't have to recite the verse, or do you want me to?
No.
What is it? Swayambhu, Narada Shambhu, Kumara Kapilo Manu.
Yep.
Okay. So Bhishma was lying on a bed of arrows, Sharashaya. It's also called Banashaya. And Lord Krishna inspires Yudhishthir. Not inspires, he tells, let's go. Bhishma, and you get Dharma Upadesh. You can learn what is Dharma from Bhishma. So one of the verses, see, that Upadesh is in the Mahabharata, in the Shanti Parva, or Anushasana Parva, after the Battle of Kurukshetra. Obviously, that's when Bhishma was on the bed of arrows. And there's one in the Bhagavatam 1:9-27. And the verse is, Dana Dharman, Raja Dharman, Moksha Dharman, Vibhagashaha. What is how to give in charity? Dana Dharman. What charity should you give? Nowadays, the Hindus are imitating the West as far as charity goes. Schools and hospitals, right? Dana Dharman. But there were no schools and hospitals in India. There weren't. Schools means the kind of edifice that Garuda Prabhu is teaching in, and many others. They're popping up all over India. Popping up means untold fortunes are being spent to build these big buildings. Never existed. Dana Dharman, Raja Dharman, how to rule the kingdom. Moksha Dharman, how to get liberation. And then the next word, Stri Dharman, the duties of women. And after that, Bhagavat Dharman, the duties of devotees, bhaktas. Samasa Vyasa Yogataha. In brief and in, what is the word? Extensively, this was described by Bhishma to Yudhishthir in the presence of Lord Krishna. So women have their own role in society. Now, women are the greatest devotees of Krishna. The Vraja Gopis and the Dvija Patnis of Vrindavan are the examples, and there are many others, Kunti Devi, etc., right? Kunti's prayers. So it's not that women can, and then there's the famous verse in Gita, Mam hi partha vyapashritya, those who take shelter of me, ye pisyuhu papayonayaha, who are born in sinful wombs. Now these are Krishna's words in Gita. And we have very intelligent scholars, not Garuda Prabhu, but other scholars saying, well, Papayonaya is, it's not sinful. I don't know. They want to contradict Krishna. That's what's going on. And then Krishna says, Striyaha, women, Vaishyas, business community, which I think Namarasa's parents belong to, if I'm not mistaken. But he can tell me better. And striyo vaishyas tata shudras. Now, the vast majority of human society are the servant class, the shudras, the legs. Tepi yanti paragatim, they can attain the highest destination. Now, not being a Diksha guru for a woman does not disqualify a woman from getting liberation, from getting moksha. When the Vraja Gopi, when the Dvija Patnis, when the Dvija Patnis left everything and came to Krishna, what did Krishna do? You are greater devotees than your husbands. Now you perform the sacrifices and they'll look after the children, cook and clean the house. He could have told them that, right? Gender equality. They were greater. Go and serve your husbands. It's in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 23rd chapter. Go back and assist them. Women were always in Vedic society in a supporting role, not in a leading role. And there are many quotations from Prabhupada. I'm ready to produce them here today.
I'd like to hear, yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I'd like to hear what Garuda Prabhu has to say about that, about what Basu Ghosh Prabhu was saying, but also in particular about that verse from Dhruva Maharaj chapter where he kind of, Prabhupada really spells it out there.
Yeah, well, what my understanding after all these years is that, Prabhupada spoke of Varnasrama Dharma in 3 different forms. What Basu Ghosh is talking about, if I'm not misunderstanding him, is the Vedic Varnashram system. Now, the Vedic Varnashram system belongs in Vedic times. Prabhupada spoke of 2 other forms of Varnashrama. He didn't call it this, but he spoke of it. He called it about natural Varnashrama. In other words, Varnashrama is a principle of society that is always occurring whether you like it or not. It's naturally there, but it's in a partial form, in an imperfect form, and incomplete form, and so on. So it's a naturally occurring structure of human society. And then, of course, we know it comes from the Purusha Sukta in the Vedas and so on, the different body parts of society, so to speak, right? The analog to the different body parts. The head, the arms, the stomach, the legs, and so on. But the Vedic Varnashrama in Kali Yuga is not possible. So what we have is what Prabhupada called, or what Chaitanya Charitamrita refers to as Daiva Varnashrama. Now, what Daiva Varnashrama does is it turns Vedic Varnashrama on its head. And Vedic Varnashrama is beautiful because you will be implicated toward liberation, birth after birth. You will rise up to a liberated state eventually. Natural Varnashrama implicates everyone towards sin. You will be demoted forever and ever, and Nitya Buddha, is what you're headed for natural Varnashrama, incomplete Varnashrama. Daiva Varnashrama turns Vedic Varnashrama on its head because it doesn't wait for the gradual elevation of souls up to a liberated state, but rather it brings anyone in any position, anywhere, no matter how sinful, the Jagais and Madhais, whatever, to a liberated state. It's the fast track of Harinama Sankirtan. This is Daiva Varnashrama, and there's no formula for Daiva Varnashrama. Even Mahaprabhu Gauranga took sannyas at 24. No one in Vedic Varnashrama, you don't take sannyas at 24. You take it later on in life. So it just is an example. Now I'm speaking very formulaically, Basu, right? There are always exceptions and so on. But in Daiva Varnashrama, it's whatever position, whatever angle of approach, whatever talents one has, proclivities, propensities, whatever, that is engaged in Krishna's service. So when we read, now when Basu Ghosh was quoting the Bhagavad Gita, and by the way, you have very nice Sanskrit pronunciation, Basu Ghosh. I've been studying Sanskrit for decades, so I like your pronunciation very much, and good exegesis too. So it's very good. Now, I'd like to point out a verse in the Gita, Krishna's last words. And Krishna, of course, is engaged in a dialogue with Arjuna, and he presents all these various philosophical understandings and viewpoints. But then at the end, after he presents the ultimate teaching of the Gita, verses 64 through 66 in chapter 18, the last words he speaks was chapter 72. Kachit echat shrutam partha, right? Twayaikagrena chetasa. Have you heard this whole teaching with thought focused on the single highest point? Ekagra, eka, agra, single highest point. And this has to do, this is transforming that whole Vedic vision into the vision of Mahaprabhu Gauranga, the vision of Krishna Prema. And whatever we need to do, however form it happens to take in Kali Yuga, that's what we do to get there. So I can't relate. Now, the only thing I can't relate to that Basu Ghosh is saying is this feminist thing. And I guess what's the opposite of feminism? Traditionalism? Or I don't work with those terms, Basu Ghosh. I apologize for my lacking here. I'm not a very political person. It's about Krishna Prema. If someone comes to another devotee who is seasoned, who is realized, and begs him or her for further guidance, further instruction, it would behoove them to offer it.
I'd like to hear Basu Ghosh Prabhu response, as well as maybe my question is that so I know this is kind of divided between ISKCON India and ISKCON America, it seems, from where I'm looking at about pro and against. But what is the issue with, like, it's not like many women will come forward to become gurus. I'm sure it might be like maybe few, like, because I don't think the position of Diksha Guru is something that people want to go after, because it's a lot of responsibility. There's all this other stuff involved with giving initiation. So yeah. I guess my question is, what is the issue with having just a few ladies give initiation? Why does it make such a big difference, I guess, is my question.
Okay. I have a bit of a difference of opinion with Garuda Prabhu and what he said, based on what Rupa Goswami taught in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And that is Shruti Smriti Puranadi, Pancharatra Vidhim Vina, Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Yaiva Kalpate. Bhakti without reference to Shastras just causes a disturbance in society. This is the translation. And when the Shastras, Shruti are the Vedas, Smriti are the Dharma Shastras, Manu and other, there are 80 of them.
Itihasa Purana.
Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi. Puranas and Itihasas. Pancharatra, there's 140, 150, whatever. Only the Ramanuja Sampradaya studies it. So without following that, because what I heard from you was, well, if you have bhakti, there's no form, you can do anything. But I disagree on that point. You have to follow the instructions of Shastras. Now, in human society, there is gender distinction in Vedic thought. I'll give you some examples of that if you don't mind, but you got to give me the time. If you're going to give a time limit and then bang, here in this country, I'm from here, but I lived 46 years in India, although, it'll be 48, but here I've been here the last 13 months in this, we call it Patala Lokam, some people, the hellish planets. There are hellish planets where you enjoy sense gratification, right? It's not all punishment. There are different hells, right?
So Prabhupada came to a hell.
Well, this is considered the middle planet, right? This
Okay.
is one in the 14 planetary systems. This is in a nutshell. So anyway, on gender distinction, I want to, if you don't mind, can I read something from Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's from Adi Leela 10:137. Madhavi Devi Shiki Mahitir Bhagini
Mhm.
Shri Radhar Dasi Madhye Jar Namagani.
Mhm.
So that's the Bengali. I'm just the translation by Prabhupada is Madhavi Devi, the 17th of the prominent devotees, was the younger sister of Shiki Mahiti. She is considered to have formerly been a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Purport. In the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 2, verses 104 to 106, there is a description of Madhavi Devi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered her one of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Now, that was Mahaprabhu's opinion. Now, here's Prabhupada's opinion, or the opinion of the Purva Acharyas that he reflects in his purports. Within this world, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 very confidential devotees. The three were Swarup Gosai, Sri Ramananda Rai, and Shiki Mahiti. And Shiki Mahiti's sister, Madhavi Devi, being a woman, was considered the half. Thus, it is known that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 confidential devotees. So, this gender distinction is not only a part of Vedic culture that Garuda Prabhu wants us to believe is archaic, apparently. He can clarify, and out of date for modern society. But the Chaitanya Charita, see, Prabhupada translated these books and wrote these purports not for a bygone age. And this obfuscation is going on by leaders in ISKCON that, well, you know, you asked Garuda about that, Garuda Prabhu about that 4:12:32 Bhagavatam purport. And he didn't really talk about it, which, you know, is his prerogative. I'm not disputing that. But there are others. I don't want to mention their names because I want to stick with the principle.
Yeah, please.
But they're propagating the idea. Well, that was thousands and thousands of years ago. By the way, that was told to me in the dialogue between the GBC team and the bureau team. And I'm sorry, it is nonsense. Thank you for giving me a platform to announce to the devotees in the United States that they're being misled. Prabhupada's purports are for the here and now. And I'm not the one that's saying it. Prabhupada is saying it.
Basu Ghosh.
Wait, I'm not finished.
Okay.
You know, if you want to respond, okay.
No. Go ahead and finish your thought. Just keep it brief.
No,
and then
there was another. Oh my God.
What?
See, here's another lecture by Prabhupada in Los Angeles. We're talking about the gender equality movement and the gender distinction that Prabhupada made, and the reason he never appointed a woman as a GBC or a temple president. So listen to this. This is in Los Angeles, 1972. He gave a lecture on a purport where on a verse where there's no purport in the Bhagavad. He didn't write a purport, but he gave this lecture 1/3/17. I think it's September 22nd, 1972. This is an excerpt from the middle of the lecture. Woman, they are generally equipped with the qualities of passion and ignorance. Sure, generally. A man may also be, but a man can be elevated to the platform of goodness. Woman cannot be. And I'm sure Garuda Prabhu is aware in Sanskrit, when in Sanskrita Bhasha, kadachit sambhashanam karishyati avayoho madhye, kadachit matkrite kashtam nasti, Garuda prabhavaha, ete sham bahuvachanam adarartam, Samskrita sambhashanasya abhyasaha nasti. Aham navadami aham sampurna Samskrita bhasha janami. I don't know the whole language, but I can converse. So in Sanskrit, sutta mahabaho. There are many, I don't know what's the technical term for repetition of the same word.
Right.
So here he's repeating the same sentence in the lecture. A woman cannot be situated in the mode of goodness. Now, you can say, well, generally, and there are exceptions. But if you rubber stamp, all ISKCON women have crossed the modes of passion and ignorance, and they're all in the mode of goodness. That's also nonsense. Even I'm not claiming that I'm on the highest platform of goodness. But that attempt is being made. That's why, Namrasa Prabhu, for your kind information, that they tried to sanitize the issue by changing it from female to Vaishnavi. Vaishnavis are all on the highest platform like the gopis. That's Sahajiya. They're not. They are ordinary human beings. We're all, maybe there is someone on that highest platform. I'm not saying there's nobody, but generally it's not like that. Let me finish what Prabhupada said. Therefore, if the husband is nice and the woman follows, woman becomes faithful and chaste to the husband, then both their life becomes successful. There are three qualities of nature, sattva, raja, tama. So rajas, tama, generally that is the quality of woman. And the man can become to the platform of goodness. Therefore, initiation, Brahminical symbolic representation is given to the man, not to the woman. This is the theory. Now, theory has different definitions, but one of the definitions, the second definition, is a set of principles upon which the practice of an activity is based. So if a woman, Prabhupada wanted to reestablish Daiva Varnashram. I don't see the difference personally.
Oh, there's a big difference.
Anyway, okay, what I understand is Daiva Varnashram. My own understanding is that everybody should be a devotee of Krishna. And maybe in regular Varnashram, they're not, concomitant to be a devotee. Same time, Prabhupada has clearly said that Varnashram is for modern society. And I'll read that purport a little later because I've
sure,
gone on.
Yeah, let's let Garuda Prabhu respond.
Yeah, I have a load of responses here. Just to talk about the Trigunya in relation to men and women, and when Prabhupada says that is the theory, he's talking about again the structure of the Vedic vision of society. The fact is, and it's counterintuitive, really, if you look around. But you know what? Forget about that. What I'd like to point out is that you can find in Prabhupada's books places where he contradicts things that he says in other parts of his books. This could be a discussion, and I'm not actually willing to take the time to read parts of what Prabhupada has said. Prabhupada has said so many things about women and how special the women are as his disciples. I read many of these things. Now I don't know. Maybe they're special and they're totally in the mode of tamas and rajas. I don't get the impression that's what Prabhupada meant. But here's the thing, Basu Ghosh, you know that place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where it's stated that even great sages, now that doesn't really apply to me, but it does to you and others, but even great sages will disagree on points of philosophy. Dharma stapana hetu shadur vyavahar. It is the behavior of a Vaishnava that
Great
establishes the principles of religion. So you and I could sit here, and I don't think Namras is going to be willing to do this. We could sit here for 12 hours reading from Prabhupada's letters. We could be sitting here for 12 more hours reading from Shastra, and I've got it all, here. I mean, there's no shortage. That's not the point. My point is that it's about relationships. It's about individual qualifications. It has nothing to do with female or male. It has to do with how we can serve Krishna. What is our qualification? What is our qualification to inspire hearts, to love the divine and love all living beings? This is our process. I spend so much time navigating through the academic world, showing them the beauty of the sacred texts of our tradition. I say, Sarva Guyatamam Bhuya Shrinu Me Paramang Vachaha Ishtosi Me Dhritam Iti Tato Vakshyami Tehatam. The greatest secret of all. Please hear again. And if that wasn't enough emphasis, that was a double superlative. My supreme message, in other words, nothing else matters, is Ishtosi me dhritamiti. You are so much loved by me. Basically, Krishna is saying, will you love me back? This is the essence. If we lose the essence with quarreling, which Kali facilitates, she's a great facilitator of quarreling. As long as we've got our minds and hearts on the single highest point, which Krishna instructs in a rhetorical question in chapter 18, verse 72 that I just referred to earlier. This is the highest point. I understand that India may not be able to handle, females doing puja. I mean, I lived in India and I did not see one, Vaishnavi performing puja in the temple. I lived in Vrindavan. It just never happened. Okay. So I understand that India's got certain habits and mores, and Prabhupada talks about being sensitive to different cultures, desha kalapatra, place, time, and circumstance. Those are elements that we need to take into consideration for sure. I accept that. America, Prabhupada talks about here, the boys and the girls mix freely. So we take that into consideration. So he engages that. I think India can be engaged too. But never should we ever drop the highest principle, the Bhaktir Uttama, the ultimate vision, pristine vision of bhakti, which cannot be compromised and it cannot be eclipsed. If it does, then we have something other than bhakti. Then we've got Hinduism. So I think that as long as we hold on to that absolute principle, I'm, flexible in seeing the limitations of American culture, European culture, African culture, Indian culture. I see the limitations there, and we have to work with them. That I do see that. I see that.
I still didn't get an answer to my question regarding if we do institute in ISKCON, that we allow female Diksha Guru, Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus, there won't be hordes of ladies coming to give initiation. So could we not save ourselves this whole conversation and the whole back and forth, the whole fighting between devotees, if we allowed it and it wouldn't be that many people? I still don't understand why that's an issue.
You want me to respond to that?
Oh, yeah, you are.
Then I'll respond after Basu Ghosh.
Prabhupada had a vision for society. He wanted the Westerners to adopt Vedic culture, Vedic dress. Although Namarasa Prabhu has a tilak, he has a Western t-shirt on. In fact, we shouldn't have stitched cloth In Kerala, they don't allow you in the temple.
That's right.
Stitch cloth.
That's right.
So, there's pictures of Prabhupada from the 60s and 70s. There's a description, the whole block of Watsika Avenue was all dhotis and saris, right? So one of our prominent godbrothers, who's also sharing the same educational institution that Garuda Prabhu did his doctoral thesis from, so now you know who I'm talking about, who is eschewing the dhoti, the tilak, and he's propagating something what I just heard from Garuda Prabhu, that Indian culture is mundane. I don't know if Garuda Prabhu believes that, but Prabhupada didn't teach that. Prabhupada said it's from Vaikuntha. I didn't say it. Prabhupada said the Vedic dress is from Vaikuntha. So and it's a historical fact. There's letters from the 1967 period when a certain late K. Swami, I'll refer to him by that name, left Prabhupada. He came from India to the US, cut off his sikha, put on black robes, and there's extensive correspondence of Prabhupada saying he's condemning him. Let's put it in a gentlemanly way. And that, you should not cut off the sikhas. He called them flags in those days. You should not take off the neck beads. So, it's a question of, are we following Prabhupada here? Or do we want to just, concoct our own ideology, which apparently this senior godbrother is doing, and with great, influence on devotees here in the West who are not from India, who don't know what Indian culture is. In fact, if you see the life of Prabhupada, his guru ordered him to preach in English, and his target was the United States, not England. But he got success in the US, so he went to England, sent devotees all over the world. But all told, he spent the most time and money in India. All of his money, I forgot in the beginning to chant one Maha Mantra in remembrance of a godbrother who just left his body in Alachua a few days ago, Pita Das.
Oh,
Pita Das, you may not have known him.
I did not.
I wanted to remember him sometime during this podcast.
Hmm.
And it's a reminder that we're all, in the queue. Ahanyahani Bhutani Gachanti Amalayam, right? This is the famous reply of Yudhishthir to Yamaraj in the Yaksha Prashna, in the Mahabharata, day and night. So many are going to Yamaloka. So, Prabhupada was a messenger. He said like that, I'm not changing anything. I'm not introducing anything new. It wasn't, we made it a Prabhupada personality cult. And that's been replicated by the new guru personality cults that we have. And, they may deny it. No, I'm just a teacher. I'm a guru, but we have them. But the example Prabhupada set regarding women was not to appoint them. And there's all these statements like that. They don't want equality. They're happy cleaning and cooking for Krishna. So the in-house is in ISKCON argument by the leaders here in the United States and Europe, and the guy in charge in Australia, the guy in charge in South Africa, who's our chairman now, is that, the West is a different place, but it's the same. There's a purport where was a conversation. There's no difference between millions and years ago and now. There's Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. What has changed? What is new?
The yugas have changed.
No, the yugas have changed, but
this is why Mahaprabhu comes.
Sure.
Kali Yuga, we got to do the fast track, Basu. You and I got to do the fast track.
Same time.
We're in the queue. You know what I mean? All right, okay.
Yeah. No,
Hare Krishna, right?
Obviously, we all agree on that. But what we don't agree on is taking the vision of Prabhupada, what about his purports? See, Prabhupada in the purports, these are, the essence of his teachings. And if we contradict those, then how are we following him? And he's just following an ancient tradition. I could say more, but anyway.
Before you respond, we are an hour and 10 minutes in, and I'd like to stop for a promotional break. So we have about 170 devotees watching over all the different platforms. So we actually have a promotion for Gita Nagari. So Gita Nagari is inviting all devotees to come for a Kartik Parikram in the home of Sri Sri Radha Damodar during Lord Damodar's month. During this time, when many devotees would normally be traveling to India, Gita Nagari wants to host them on the farm community established by Srila Prabhupada, which is non-different than Sri Vrindavan Dham. Devotees are invited to come for the entire month or for any amount of time. Staying on the farm will give devotees an opportunity to go deeper into their hearing and chanting in a peaceful atmosphere. Gita Nagari will host the daily morning program, daily Damodar Ashtakam, Krishna book readings in the evening, and guided parikram and katha, celebrations of all the major festivals during the Kartik month, community kirtans, cow cuddling, and opportunities for service. So this is the webpage that I was sent. This is iskongitanagari.org/Kartik 2021. So you will be able to find out how to register here. And there's also a promotional price for this. $50 per person per night for adults, with the service exchange of 90 minutes per day. And for children 5 to 16 years old is $35, and children under 5 are free. And when you register, if you put in the comment section that they are registering for Kartik Yatra, you will get we will give them that reduced rate. So you'll get that reduced rate if you mention that on the when you register. So go ahead, and if you want to spend Kartik and Gita Nagari in a nice farm community, please go ahead and do that. It's very wonderful. It's in Port Royal, Pennsylvania, about 3 hours outside of New York City. So thank you, Gita Nagari Dam, for sharing that. So let's go back to what we were talking about. Garuda Prabhu, do you want to respond to what Basu Ghosh?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, the idea of cuddling a cow, I'm going to go to Gita Nagari for sure. I mean, I absolutely adore cows. I mean, I just love them. Okay, so by the way, Gita Nagari, Nam Rasa didn't pay me to say that. Okay, that just came from my heart. Okay, so first of all, Basu Ghosh, I'd like to do my time right now a little bit back and forth with you. Just ask quick questions, yes, no, maybe quick responses. You are aware of the other, Diksha gurus in our lineage, right?
You see, Prabhupada.
No, do we have a yes or a no? Do we have a yes or?
Well, that's not fair.
Really?
Okay. Not fair to make it yes or no.
Oh.
Because Prabhupada only mentioned 3 gurus. He didn't say Diksha. Janava, he never said Diksha. And, I read you from the lecture he gave, and where he said specifically Brahminical symbolic representation, the Yagnopavit. Mm-hmm. So this indicates Prabhupada wanted to reintroduce Varnashram, Daiva Varnashram. I'm the minister, by the way, in ISKCON India. Bhakti Raghava Swami created a Daiva Varna. Created means it was approved by the ISKCON India Advisory Committee, which works under the Bureau. And he resigned, and I was a co-minister. So I became a minister for ISKCON India Daiva Varnashram.
You're using up my time.
No,
I want a quick answer.
No, the point is, women never wore the thread. Neither Janava, neither Hemlata, neither Gangamata. These are the 3. Any other names that you introduce are mostly caste Goswami women, and we reject the caste Goswami lines. Prabhupada rejected them in his essay in 1954. And Bhaktisiddhanta wrote a book, and our late godbrother Suhotra Swami also wrote a book about the Upasampradayas. So, women can't give Diksha in Varnashram Dharma in the sense of the Brahmin thread. Now there's another, anyway, okay.
Yeah, I mean, see, but Basu,
I can go on, but okay.
You have read, I mean, surely you are well read, surely you have read many statements where Prabhupada said, yes, woman can become guru, yes.
See, that means Shiksha Guru and Pata Pradashaka Guru, not Diksha Guru.
Well, but Prabhupada, but it's a matter of, suddenly there's one sliver of service, you know, minus that one little aspect of service, and all other services women can perform.
Yeah, women are not Brahmanas.
But that's not Vedic. That's not Vedic.
No, the women were always the assistants. They assist their husbands. Even, you know, I can. How much time do you want to give me? Because
you're going back and forth. You're going back and forth now.
Yeah, because see, here's the thing. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he had Vaishnavi Diksha. There were Vaishnavi
Diksha Guru. No, but I'll thank you for raising this. In the Jaiva Dharma, which is a novel written by Bhaktivinoda, there's a scene where the hero walks in an ashram. He's walking around the ashram, and he walks into a room where a Vaishnavi is giving a lecture to Vaishnavis. And Prabhupada stressed this separation of the sexes in society, which, as you rightly observed earlier, doesn't exist here. And now it's being introduced in India because India is aping the West. So that's Kali Yuga. But Bhaktivinoda's vision was a Vaishnavi lecturing to Vaishnavi. That's Shiksha. That's not Diksha. I mean, the Diksha that Prabhupada introduced, which is in Chaitanya Charitamrita 15:108, Madhya Lila, where the verse says that you don't need initiation to get liberation, right? You know that verse?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in the purport, Prabhupada outlines the system of initiation, and he talks about the Brahmin thread. I can read the purport for you right now.
It's okay. We know that one.
Okay.
Again, Basu, my point is, okay, this is actually my time, okay, that I'm including you, okay? So, because I like the idea of dialogue back and forth quicker rather than just a big presentation. So my point is that when Prabhupada was asked by Joseph O'Connell, and I knew Joe when he was alive, a fellow Harvard alumnus, he asked, "Can a woman become guru?" And Prabhupada didn't say, "Well, only Shiksha, not Diksha." He said, "Of course, she could become." And the example that he gave is said, "Well, just like woman can become professor." But she can only be an assistant professor, not a full professor. He didn't say that. Prabhupada knows the educational system. It's here. Okay, Basu, this is the one thing that bothers me about this whole thing. The feminist thing and all this, I understand different cultures have different expectations. We have to work with them. I understand that. But the thought that you and I or anyone or the institution can limit what bhakti forms, what forms bhakti can take, completely makes the whole thing collapse. Bhakti is so powerful. The absolute principle of bhakti is so powerful. It can even make me sit here and talk about it. I mean, when I speak about the absolute highest principle of Krishna bhakti and Krishna and Radha Krishna prema, I explained that there are absolutely no limits to the seva that can be performed. Secondarily, there are considerations of practical, like, does it work here? Does it work there? Do you have the psychophysical nature? Guna karma, okay, it says guna karma vibhagashaha. Okay, that's fine. The qualities and activities, by your qualities and activities. And the other thing I'd like to say, and I'll hand over the mantle, is that bhakti is so powerful, Basu, that the reality of the situation is that whether we want it or not, whether I want females to offer Diksha or Shiksha, it's happening anyway. It's going on anyway. Even surreptitiously, clandestinely, whatever, because you cannot stop two hearts from connecting in Krishna Bhakti. It cannot happen.
I think this is the crux of the discussion right now, being that can we legislate or can we institutionalize guruship? Because where Basu Ghosh Prabhu is coming from is from the ISKCON viewpoint.
Well, can I reply to that?
Yeah, please.
Prabhupada created an institution. Bhakti Siddhanta created an institution. In fact, Guru Kula, the word Guru Kula means the home of the Guru. Krishna and Balaram didn't need to study from a guru, and they didn't go to a female guru. He had a wife, and she was the Guru Patni. And it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam what they studied. That's the Vedic educational syllabus.
Vedic,
yeah. Right. Yeah, but it's propagated in the Bhagavatam.
Vedic. It's Vedic. It's not propagated Vedic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
But we say Nigama Kalpa Taruhu Galitam Phalam. I mean, the glorification of, why do we print the Bhagavatam then? If we're not following what's taught in the Bhagavatam.
Because, right, the Bhagavatam.
No, see, what's happening is, if you want to make the Shastras suit what you want, violates what Rupa Goswami taught.
Yeah.
It violates it. We should learn from the Shastras, not change the Shastras to, support the modern liberal ethos.
But Basu, I've already said that there are contradictions in Shastra all over the place. You and I could have a Shastra, contest. We could do that. We could do that for 12 hours.
See, where do we get guidance from?
Guru.
Prabhupada's purports. But, okay.
Guru.
I see
Sadhu.
The problem.
Sadhu.
No, I see the problem. I see the problem, and I'm going to, because Chaitanya Charitamrita, you mentioned. Here it is 6 CC Madhya 6135. Pramaner Madhya Shruti Praman Pradan. Shruti ye Mukhya Artha Kahe say Praman.
Yep.
Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version, and Prabhupada wrote Vedic version, but it actually means the Vedas themselves, right? Shruti means Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Atharva Veda, Sama Veda.
And the Upanishads. And the Upanishads.
No, Upanishads are they're 4 parts of the Vedas, right? Like Ishopanishad is from Shukla Yajur Veda, or Krishna
it's still considered Shruti. It's still considered.
Right, exactly. Because it's
not to the Mimamsakas. Not to the Mimamsakas.
Well, there's Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad, right? They're parts of the Vedas. So here it says Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. Here's the purport by Prabhupada. Works that should be consulted are Srila Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha 10:11, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan's commentary on that, and the following verses of the Brahma Sutra, Shastra Yonit Vat, which means that our knowledge is born from Vedas and Vedic literature. Vedanta Sutra 113, Tarka Pratishtanat, Vedanta Sutra 2:111, and Shrutestu Shabda Mulatvat, Vedanta Sutra 2:127, as commented upon by Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhva Acharya, Sri Nimbarkacharya, and Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan. In his book Sarva Samvadini, Srila Jiva Goswami has noted that although there are 10 kinds of evidence, direct perception, the Vedic
but I know all this. I know all this, Basu. I know all this.
You know it, but then the viewers.
But Basu,
let's hear what Prabhupada said.
This is the point. This is the point, Basu. There's so many things that Prabhupada has said. It will take us 12 to 15 hours to go through. My point is, I'm appealing
Right.
to
See,
your
bhakti-
highest understanding of
Yeah.
bhakti.
Bhakti does not override the Shastras.
No,
because
but Shastra must serve the bhakti.
no, that's not what Rupa Goswami wrote.
That's
Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi,
Uh,
Pancharatra, Vidhim Vina, without the processes of the Shastras, Aikantiki Hare Bhakti.
yeah. I
Hari
understand this.
Bhakti is, you see what you're saying, you just said Bhakti overrides Shastras. But Rupa Goswami, and we're Rupanugas, says that Bhakti without reference to Shastra Vidhi is a disturbance. So I rest my case there on this particular point. We have to have reference from Shastras.
Well, of course. I mean, my gosh, do you think I'm just going to read Tolstoy?
Well, it sounds like something else.
I mean, Dostoevsky's got some good stuff to say, and Shakespeare. Prabhupada actually liked Shakespeare.
Sure.
My point is, Shastra.
Let me make one point.
Yeah.
Wait, let Garuda Prabhu.
how many-
Basu Ghosh Prabhu, hold on. Let Garuda Prabhu finish his thought because he was going to say something.
Mimamsa laws of interpretation are utilized by the Goswamis in commenting in their bhashyas. And we could exercise those too, and you were about to at one point. My simple point is that Prabhupada gave us the extraordinary example of utilizing anything and everything in Krishna's service. There was no limit. This movement would not be what it is today if women just stayed home, had babies, and cooked in the kitchen.
But that's separate from being a Diksha guru.
Well, no, you're invoking the Vedic system, which would then, favor what you're saying. The Vedic system is not what we have here.
No, sorry, but Rupa Goswami doesn't agree with you.
Actually, he does. He talks that verse in the
to disagree.
Anyabilashita shunyam. Empty.
But that doesn't cancel out what this verse that he wrote, is it? Let me say one thing.
Okay.
How many times, let me ask a rhetorical question, which we all know the answer to. How many times did Prabhupada say, Jesus is our guru? 100 times? 200 times? Whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was Prabhupada propagating Christianity? The answer is no. Did he tell us to print Bibles and distribute Bibles? The answer is no. Isn't it?
Well, what is that? I don't see the relevance.
You can take these statements of Prabhupada that Jesus is our guru, and there's devotees in their classes, not a lot of devotees, but a few. They say, well, Jesus told the apostles, and St. Francis of Assisi said. I've heard a class like that. I don't want to mention who gave it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can take things that Prabhupada said out of context.
Yes, and you can do the same with Shastra.
Okay, true. But if you see the whole body of Prabhupada's teachings, he was propagating the Bhagavatam, the Gita, and devotion to the places in India, Vrindavan and Mayapur. He didn't, with all due respect to Gita Nagari, where, I'm all in favor of, and cow cuddling.
You can cuddle a cow. You can cuddle a cow and get an nagar. That's the highest. That's the highest.
Well, ISKCON Baroda has 125 gear cows in the backyard.
Seriously, wonderful.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Anyway, you see, with all due respect to the Gita Nagari, New Vrindavan, New Talavan, which I have a special relationship with them, and they're building a new temple. Let's give a plug here for New Talavan. And don't say Taliban.
Right.
But you see, Prabhupada wanted his disciples to come to India to learn the culture. Yamuna's cookbook was based on all the cooking that she did in Calcutta and Bombay and Delhi and whatnot.
Vrindavan,
no, Calcutta. She cooked in the homes of rich Marwaris.
That's true.
I gave her original cookbook to all of my siblings, hoping, they'll become vegetarians. Didn't work.
Yeah.
So, Prabhupada, India is the place where the demigods are praying to be born, according to the Bhagavatam 5:19-21. The devatas are praying. India is a special place. Prabhupada spent his time and his money and inspired Ambarish Prabhu to give $30 million, which is only part of the money going for the TOVP. Another plug for the TOVP.
Yeah. Okay, good.
ISKCON's biggest project. And so institutionalization was a vision of Prabhupada and his guru. Before Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Vinod didn't have, maybe he had some, loose association of Vaishnavas, but he didn't have a, institutional focused idea. And why the institution is not appointing gurus. This is something that the Western GBCs and I agree on. We do have some, besides the TLAC and, the Mayapur Executive Board and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
The institution has to make sure, to the best of their ability, ultimately you cannot control.
Right.
But that the gurus are, that's why Prabhupada made a GBC. Actually, they're not supposed to micromanage. They are supposed to make sure that everyone's following the teachings.
Yes.
And not by lording it over them. That's another, this is the problem, but it's a problem all over human society, not only in ISKCON.
But I think the institution is rubber stamping who can be guru and not, right?
Well, see, this is a propaganda being made by Ritvikists, liberals, and those who, don't like ISKCON for whatever reason. They're not rubbers. Yeah, I'll tell you, Prabhupada used this expression, rubber stamp. Do you know how he used it? You're a Gujarati, you should know. Namras, I'm chastising you. Because Mohandas Karamchand, aka Mahatma Gandhi, made the big rubber stamp Harijan. Harijan, Bhaktajan, Vishnujan. We have our Vishnu, but he's called Vishnu Jan, but it's Vishnu Jan. Jan means a person, Janata.
Jana. The word is actually Jana.
Right. So the Janata Express is a famous train in India that stops, almost at every station, goes slow for the common man. And there was the Janata Party that got elected in 1977. Prabhupada had the newspapers read to him every day by Tamal Krishna Maharaj in Juhu when that happened. He wanted to know, Indira Gandhi's era ended for a short period of 3 years, and then she came storming back, but that's another story. Anyway, this rubber stamp, the backward castes, the untouchables, excuse me, there's a difference between a backward caste, which are the Shudras, and the untouchables, which are the outcasts. So the untouchables, Gandhi wanted to bring them into the mainstream. He wanted to abolish the distinctions of caste by saying they're people of Hari, Vishnu. They're Vishnu's people. In reality, our ideology is every jiva is Vishnu's. But the people that I'm looking out at a very busy road called Baltimore Avenue, which is right down the road from the University of Maryland here in College Park, Mr. Academic Prabhu.
I'm familiar.
And the people in those cars are all not cow cuddlers, they're cow eaters.
Yes.
And, I saw the documentary on Netflix, inside,
Wait, hold on a second.
Inside Bill Gates' brain. And they asked Bill Gates, what's your favorite food? Hamburger. What's your favorite animal to eat? Cows. So that's what you're dealing with in this country. The opinions are being shaped. The people with the money power are.
But that doesn't answer my question.
Demons.
Prabhu, just 1 second. My question is, does ISKCON rubber stamp and institutionalize guruship? And the answer that it does, right?
I disagree to a certain extent. They approve, not rubber stamp.
Okay, so
see what rubber stamp What do you mean by rubber stamp?
Meaning
Approve.
they
If
can
it's
approve
approved,
and
then
who-
yes.
approve
Yeah.
and disapprove who can be guru. And I think
Well,
Garuda Prabhu's point is that
See,
anyone
it's a responsibility given by Prabhupada to his governing body to make sure that everyone is following his teachings. Otherwise, again, you can start teaching from the Bible and distributing Bibles instead of Bhagavatams and Gitas because Prabhupada said Jesus is our guru, isn't it? You understand my point?
I think that's I don't think anyone's going to do that, and it's going to be apparent that that's
Well, I heard
deviation.
I heard a class where a Swamiji, a sannyasi, in the class was said Saint Francis of Assisi told his disciples. What he told, I forgot. This was 15 years ago. And Jesus told the apostles. I forgot what Jesus told the apostles. I apologize. But this isn't the classes Prabhupada gave. I attended them. Garuda Prabhu attended them. They're all, all means a heck of a lot of them were recorded and we can listen to them. And
Let's let Garuda Prabhu respond if he has anything to say. Garuda Prabhu, please go ahead.
I personally heard Prabhupada say when he arrived in Philadelphia in July of 75 that all humans are equal. Men and women are equal in Krishna Bhakti, period, without qualification. I can tell you that from my 40 years of study, I have the privilege of being paid in the university to study our tradition. Now I call that being spoiled. Okay, I'm very spoiled. In everything I have read, everything I have studied, everything I have written tells me that at the highest level of understanding, there can appear to be contradictions in Prabhupada's words, but with the ultimate view, with the Uttama Darshana, the Bhakti Vilochana, they're not contradictions. They're different angles of approach, and they have to be understood in a kind of whole package. Now, but everything I have learned, everything I have written about, all the theology that I communicate to the intellectual world, and everything I've experienced in devotees, the sadhus, the gurus, everything I've learned adds up to the magnificence of Krishna Bhakti and the various forms it can take. To try to qualify that and limit Krishna Bhakti is to pull the rug out from under our theology. And in other words, and everything I know adds up to that. We have the most beautiful, pristine theology in the world. It's beautiful. But we can be endlessly lost in the tremendous nuancing of the philosophy, I see devotees getting distracted by all kinds of things, and they forget about Radha Krishna Prema. My point is very simple, Basu. While, again, I can understand that there's Desha Kalapatra considerations, the absolute and ultimate umbrella that Bhakti is, the ultimate shelter that Bhakti is, how Varnas and Ashramas can be totally utilized in the service of Krishna Bhakti in all its exquisite facets. There is no limit. That is the power of divine grace. And I've seen it. I see it in action. I see it in the institution of ISKCON. I see it outside, in spite of the ISKCON institution. It cannot stop. Krishna Bhakti will not stop. It didn't stop during the Muslim period, and during which, by the way, there are 3 Diksha gurus that carried on the Nityananda Parivar. I was the first one to announce that to the GBC back in 1978. They didn't know anything about it. The point is this, Basu Ghosh, from my heart and from my head and everything I know, we cannot limit the seva and what forms of seva there can be in bhakti. Yes, we utilize and engage the varnas and the ashrams in the service of bhakti. That's how you turn the Vedic system on its head. Yes, but it all makes sense to me, and so many people love what we do and our principles of divine love. They love it. I could not possibly present to them that somehow there's one thing that you can't do in Krishna Bhakti. Everything else, okay, a woman can do and a man can do, except one thing a woman cannot do. This is peculiar, and I will never, ever write about that, teach it. Now, I can say that now in different cultures, okay, there are considerations. Hey, you know what? We all have limitations, and that's fine. But everything I know adds up to this point. Everything Krishna ultimately says and ultimately communicates in the highest part of our theology, which I glory in presenting to the world of theologians. I could never present what you're saying. Now, just a quick response to something you said earlier. I don't have a problem with dressing and tilak. It's kind of worn out, but whatever.
No, it's there.
It wears out, so you have to keep putting it on.
I just put it on before.
Okay, I put it on hours.
Inspired by Nam Rasa.
Okay, there you go.
His crisp tilak.
He inspires me.
Reinforced mine.
I look at Nam Rasa, I see a Vaishnava. He inspires me too. So this, I'm just saying this from everything that I've learned, everything that I have felt and experienced, the incredible Vaishnavis that I have met, and I've seen them speak to persons and transform people's hearts as men. I don't know how to make a distinction. Some men are not, into preaching very much. They're into doing more ritual stuff. That's fine. Other men are really interested in teaching. Same with women. They, again, bhakti is so beautiful. And I don't want our dialogue, because you're an incredibly intelligent person, Basu, and an enjoyable person with whom to speak. I don't want our dialogue to discourage people about the absolute value and position of Krishna Bhakti.
I really love this conversation. This is a great dialogue. I think the point still comes back to the institutionalizing of guruship, because Garuda Prabhu, you don't believe in the institutionalization of guruship. Basu Ghosh Prabhu works within the society of ISKCON, in the sense of that he's explaining why Prabhupada set it up, the GBC, how it's institutionalized. So I think there's a disconnect there, where it's not that, if you don't work within the ISKCON framework as far as the bureaucracy and all that, then it makes sense why, okay, I can just become a guru. If I'm a lady, I can give initiation if I don't work within. But from Basu Ghosh Prabhu's perspective, it's, will the GBC allow that to happen or not?
May I just correct one thing you said about me?
Please. Yeah. I didn't mean anything mistaken, but yeah, please.
Yeah. I just want to qualify what you said. It's not that I don't believe in the ISKCON institution. First of all, I respect ISKCON. Of course. My hat goes off to these devotees like Basu Ghosh and Gopal Krishna and all my God brothers and God sisters who are on the GBC. Their tasks is absolutely, selfless. I don't know how you deal with all these issues and problems, especially the problems that try to see. It seems like there's a correcting mechanism that happens every once in a while. Some guru does something atrocious. A guru that was authorized does something atrocious. What that does is it it diminishes the value of the authority of authorizing a guru. Now, if something happens to me, let's say I start robbing convenience stores and preaching Mayavadi philosophy while I'm doing it. Okay, at gunpoint, I'm preaching Mayavadi philosophy. You're dead if you don't accept it. Okay, now, that probably would disqualify me from being a teacher in Krishna Bhakti. I mean, I think it's safe to say. But at least the GBC have not blessed me, have not authorized me as a collective body. By the way, individual GBC members love that I have a private, situation of Shiksha and Diksha and so on. But collectively, they'll never say it. They'll never accept it.
Right.
So I bow down to people like Basu Ghosh. I bow down to GBCs like Anuttama Prabhu and others who've taken up the mantle to try to manage an institution that is incredibly tough. And I'm not here to get in the way of it. I want to serve it. I have been serving it. I've never been disloyal to it for 50 years. I intend to keep serving it to my last breath. But I can only serve it with the very highest principles of Krishna Bhakti theology that I have been working toward all these years.
Thank you. We're at 1 hour, 46 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Tempus fugit.
Yeah, a lot of discussion going on in the comment section that I can't even keep up. But if I see any questions that are relevant, then I will try to post them. But maybe we could kind of now bring it to our conclusion. Basu Ghosh Prabhu, do you want to give your kind of concluding statement here?
Well, I would like to read two things, if you don't object.
Please.
From Prabhupada. Yogeshwar asked Prabhupada in Rome, May 27, 1974, here's a problem. The women today want the same rights as men. How can they be satisfied? Question. Answer from Prabhupada. Everything will be satisfied. Just like our women, Krishna conscious, they are working. They don't want equal rights with the men. It is due to Krishna consciousness. They are cleansing the temple. They are cooking very nicely. They are satisfied. They never said that I have to go to Japan for preaching like Prabhupada. They never say, this is artificial. So Krishna consciousness means work in his constitutional position. The men, when they remain in their constitutional position, there will be no artificial, and then it was cut. So, it's nice to want to be the Vraja Gopis or the, Dvija Patnis. But the fact of the matter is, if there was such a woman who was like Janava in ISKCON, we'd all be rallying, so-and-so should be the Acharya and the big guru. That's not the case. What the case is Western feminism, the demand for equal rights. Men are gurus, women should be gurus. Men are GBCs, women should be GBCs. Men are, Prabhupada's example, he did not appoint women as temple presidents and GBCs. He did not appoint women to leadership roles. That's in the Bhagavatam. If you don't want to use the Vedic word, use the Bhagavatam word. Srimad Bhagavatam, Amalam Puranam. There's no fault in the Bhagavatam. And there are no women leaders in the Bhagavatam. Great devotees, greatest devotees, the highest devotees, but not leaders in human society in the material world. As Prabhupada said to Yogeshwar, constitutional position. Now, thank you for allowing me to read that. Here's Srimad Bhagavatam 9:10:50. Okay, forget the Sanskrit, right? Because of time.
Yeah.
Let's go to the English translation. Being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharata, Lord Ramachandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father. not like a mother, like a father. And the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of Varna and Ashrama, accepted him as their father. Purport. People are very fond of the pattern of Ram Rajya. Ram Rajya means the kingdom of Lord Rama, Ramachandra, Ayodhya. And even today, politicians sometimes form a party called Ram Rajya, but unfortunately, they have no obedience to Lord Rama. It is sometimes said that people want the kingdom of God without God. Such an aspiration, however, is never to be fulfilled. Good government can exist when the relationship between the citizens and the government is like that, exemplified by Lord Ramachandra and his citizens. Lord Ramachandra ruled his kingdom exactly as a father takes care of his children, and the citizens, being obliged to the good government of Lord Ramachandra, accepted the Lord as their father. Thus, the relationship between the citizens and the government should be exactly like that between father and son. When he takes good care of the children, when the sons in the family are well trained, they are obedient to the father and mother. And when the father is well qualified, he takes good care of the children. As indicated here by the words, Swadharma Nirata Varnasrama Gunanvitaha. The people were good citizens because they accepted the institution of Varna and Ashrama, which arranges society in the Varna divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the Ashrama divisions of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This is actual human civilization. People must be trained according to the different Varnasrama occupational duties, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:13. Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. The four Varnas must be established according to varying qualities and work. The first principle for good government is that it must institute this Varnashram system. I don't think Biden or Trump wanted the Varnashram system, nor what's his name, Boris Johnson, etc., etc. The purpose of Varnasrama is to enable to become people, the purpose of Varnasrama is to enable people to become God conscious. Varnashram acharavata purushena paraf puman Vishnur aradyate. The entire Varnashram scheme is intended to enable people to become Vaishnavas. Vishnur asya devata. When people worship Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord, they become Vaishnavas. Thus, people should be trained to become Vaishnavas through the system of Varna and Ashrama, as they were during the reign of Lord Ramachandra, when everyone was fully trained to follow the Varnashrama principles.
Satya Yuga.
No, see, this is the misinterpretation. I mean, with all due respect to you and scholarship and your position, this is a gross misinterpretation, because Prabhupada didn't write it's for Satya Yuga. He's giving instructions for the here and now. This was at the end of his life. Anyway,
could you wrap up your statement, Prabhu?
Yeah, we are free to either accept or reject what Prabhupada taught. It's very clear to me. I admittedly, having not gone to college for one day, I admit. And Prabhupada said it's a slaughterhouse of the mind. So, your little corner might be not that, teaching those students Bhagavad Gita, I admit that. But the rest of it supposedly is. So the teachings that Prabhupada wanted us to imbibe were the teachings of, and he wrote their political parties today. He's talking about the here and now. Here's another one. I won't even open the book. The purport of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Wait, Prabhu, no. Hold on a second. I think you
wait,
can really.
Wait. Let me just. I'm quoting just one paragraph from 32440. So-called spiritual societies concocted in modern times. That modern times is not the remote past. Give sannyas even to women, even though there is no sanction in Vedic literature. So the standard is Vedic literature. for dealing with issues on women. And Diksha Guru is a subject that deals with female Diksha Guru or Vaishnavi Diksha Guru or woman Diksha Guru deals with women. So we have to see it through the instructions of Shastras. That's my contention. With that, I rest my case. I have all respect for Garuda Prabhu. We don't know each other personally. I'd love to come down there and see his teaching environment. Prabhupada was liberal, but he wasn't gender equality liberal. He was liberal in letting us Malechas and Yavanas take up bhakti and take up Vedic culture. There's a difference between being Joe Biden liberal, which is, I listen to National Public Radio, and they're propagating abortion, abortion, abortion.
Oh, okay, we're going into somewhere else now, Prabhu. We're going into somewhere else now. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Garuda Prabhu, please go ahead.
Quick question to Basu Ghosh, but it's really a rhetorical question because I know what your answer will be, which is, when you pass from this world, Krishna forbid, it's not for a long time, but when you pass from this world, will it be during the waning moon or the waxing moon?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta went during the
Waxing.
For the Krishna Paksh.
Right.
The waxing.
Okay. So, but does it actually matter?
That's a really good question.
No, it's not a good question. It's already been answered. Prabhupada said in two places, it does not matter how a devotee passes from this world, why or where or any circumstance, because that's the absolute principle of bhakti.
Yeah.
This is so precious, Basu Ghosh. It's so precious. This is precious currency. The idea of embracing an institution who doesn't try to control relationships or authorize relationships, but only blesses relationships when they are thriving. This is, I see what the role is for ISKCON, to not be responsible for fall downs, jump ups, whatever, but rather to recognize over time the proven record of devotees' effectiveness in whatever seva it may be that they are offering to Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. This is our process. And whatever combination of ashrama and varna that an individual devotee will combine, and however that's utilized, is beautiful. And in that sense, Varnasrama is valid, but not in the Vedic sense. I will continue to insist on that. One thing you mentioned, Basu, is the slaughterhouse. Now, Prabhupada mentions on page 268 of the Bhagavatam 3 times the disciplines of chemistry, literature, psychology, anthropology are all perfect in Hari Kirtan if they're engaged in Krishna Seva. The intellectual, I know devotees will, they get, not you, Basu, but many devotees will say, well, Garuda's a mundane academic. Well, no one accuses a devotee of being a mundane materialist when they're using a microphone to speak on the web, like Namrasa. Look at that big fat microphone he's stuck in front of. I mean, that's spiritual because he's utilizing it in Krishna's service. Prabhupada, remember how Prabhupada would tap the microphone? I heard him once do that, right? He tapped the microphone. So, would you rather build a temple with a handsaw or a power saw? Well, a power saw will build it in a tenth of the time. Academic training is a tool, and they're power tools when used properly. If one gets carried away by academics as an end and not just a means, then it's the slaughterhouse.
Prabhu, I know that Prabhupada wanted to establish a chair of Vaishnavism in Calcutta University.
That's right.
Okay, well, this is hold on. This is not the point of this. This is not the point anymore. Okay. We're really going off now.
Right.
If you could kind of wrap up your
everything that I have studied over the years, deeply into the Shastra, reading into the Goswamis, Bhashyas, with different parts of the Bhagavatam and so on, everything adds up to the absolute principle of bhakti, and everything is tethered to it, just as Krishna demonstrates in the Bhagavad Gita itself. Krishna ultimately doesn't care whether you, Namrasa or Basu Ghosh, die during the waxing or waning moon. Even though the 8th chapter says it's better if the best if you do during the waxing moon. It doesn't matter, because Krishna's prema and his love for his bhaktas is so much more powerful than that. And that's our greatest gift to the world. That is our greatest gift. And this is how I have to see this issue. I do take into consideration, and Basu, I've learned from you that yes, there really are Desha Kalapatra considerations, and I'm respectful of that. And also there are institutional, considerations too. And I've learned from you that, and to be considerate of that more. So I do appreciate that. And Namrasaji, I appreciate the opportunity that you have given to Basu Ghoshji and myself today to discuss this.
Thank you so much. I had really a great time listening to both of you. There was a lot of comments, a lot of great feedback also from the comments. Again, I want to reiterate, please be respectful in the comments. If there are things that are being said that don't agree with you, doesn't mean you have to be ad hominem or insult someone because of their views. This is ISKCON, and Krishna consciousness has a huge spectrum of devotees with different viewpoints. And what this podcast here illustrated today was that Basu Ghosh Prabhu and Garuda Prabhu have things that they don't agree on. But look at how they've acted. Look at how they've acted. They've acted respectfully. They've spoke respectfully. They have dialogued very respectfully. And I am so proud to host this amazing, because the main travesty I feel in our society is when people cannot discuss opposing viewpoints in a non-violent way.
Yeah.
And what you both have done is the exact opposite of that. You've done it in a very respectful way, and I really want to commend you for that. And thank you for joining me and opening this up for other devotees to speak. And let's take you both as an example. And you are examples. You're senior disciples in our movement of Srila Prabhupada, and I think people can follow your example, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Namrasa, if anyone wants to hurl any insults or criticisms at me particularly, I don't have a problem with that in the comments. So feel free.
This picture was given to me by Yudhishthir Prabhu in Dallas. He took this picture in Hawaii.
Oh, was that right?
I just wanted to, in closing.
It's right. Happy birthday, Yudhishthir. Yeah.
What we don't say happy birthday. Shatam Jiva. May you live for 100 years.
Yeah.
It's in the Rig Veda.
Very nice.
And why should you live 100 years? Somebody, a godbrother who actually passed away in Vrindavan, asked me, why should I live long? I'll just have to suffer more. And I said, because human life is very rare. Prabhupada stressed that.
Krishna Seva. Krishna Seva. Yeah.
So another thing I wanted to say was that if there are any ladies senior ladies who have opposing viewpoints on this very issue, contact me. We'll do it. We'll run it back. We'll do it with 2 ladies and see how that goes. Because people, coming at me like, hey, you only have 3 men on. Like, okay, let's do it. Like, I'm open to everything.
If you have ladies, but have one of them who supports the traditional view.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what I want. I don't want to have 2 who agree, because that will be boring. It will be a podcast like 15 minutes and it'll be over. If we have opposing viewpoints, then we can have 2-hour podcasts. So thank you.
I mean, look, at 10:9, Kathayantas cha mam nityam. It's endless gita. Bhakti invites endless gita to shanti cha ramanti cha. So beautiful, so relishable, so ecstatic.
Yes, definitely. So tomorrow we have another podcast with Amara Prabhu, who is an amazing devotee of Lord Nrsingadev. He's very into rituals and samskar. He's going to be telling his story. So please join us tomorrow for that at 1:00. Amara, yes.
Yeah.
Amara, yes. And please join us for that. So I hope everyone will share this post and like the podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and all other podcasting audio platforms as well. Basu Ghosh Prabhu and Garuda Prabhu, please stay on. I'm going to turn off the live. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.